Hey everybody, welcome to another session of Come Cloud with us. My name is Abdul Kazi, your host. We're missing out Chris today. He's been traveling, but I'll fly solo. And we have a very special guest today, uh, Daniel Christian. Hey Daniel, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time. So let's talk about you know I've been kind of following you on X and then I guess Blue Sky now. So I know you're really big into lighting, even in your house, and um, I think you even your outside lights are now synced with with some kind of music and all that. So seems like that's a good passion you have. Kind of talk about that piece.
Yeah, I do. I do musical holiday lights as a hobby. It's actually something I've been doing now for 6 years. Um, it's a fun hobby because I set up these lights and I put it up in my uh, in my house, and I will have it's not uncommon to have like six, sometimes eight cars parked outside. They will dial into an FM radio station that I use, and they just enjoy the
Mhm.
music. And I do a full show, usually 45 minutes, 45 to an hour minutes long. But it was really people love it. They will send notes to me. They leave it in my mailbox, and I'll take requests from my local people also, like what kind of music they like to hear. But it really had such a big impact on my community when the lockdown happened. That at that time, because usually I start my show the day after Thanksgiving and I end on New Year's Day. But when the lockdown
Mhm.
happened, I just let the show kept running like all the way till March and April Fool's Day. I gave my HOA a heads up, and they were like, "That's fine, man. Like, nobody has anything to do anyway, so you can run your lights as long as you want." And people were so happy. So yeah, it has a big impact on the community, and I have take a full passion on that. My entire family is in it. We enjoy it, and the only comment I leave is make sure you and your significant other are on the same page, because this can end relationships. It really can. If your significant other is not on the same page, man. Like, I have heard stories of people going and buying stuff, and like they're saying, "My wife didn't like because I bought so much." It's like, yeah, your wife and you need to be on the same page, man. But it's a fun hobby. It really is. And if you're interested, I'll put my Facebook page. You can always go check that out.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, no, that's always interesting, and I don't know honestly how you find the time because I know you run a YouTube channel, you have huge following there, and yeah. Um, so getting into that, talk to us about your IT career. I know you're a Microsoft MVP, so talk to us about your background from a Microsoft standpoint and what do you do from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, I cut teeth on the SharePoint side. My original career started in systems engineering. I was a server engineer. Like, one of the first things did actually was just racking and stacking servers. I graduated over to being a file server systems engineer, just doing a lot of file server management, content. That graduated like content management. And then at one time, people said that one of my managers said, "Hey, you know how to handle file servers? Can you take over the SharePoint side?" I'm like, "Sure, I can do SharePoint. It's just a web version of file server," and that's where it all started. My first SharePoint was SharePoint Portal. It wasn't SharePoint Server. It was SharePoint 2003, and did a lot of migrations. And one of the things I became good at also was automation pieces. I used to build a lot of info platforms and SharePoint Designer
Mhm.
workflows. I did lots of that. In fact, well, if you just Bing Daniel Christian Infopath or TechNet Wiki Infopath, you'll see my names, because I used to be a TechNet Wiki ninja back in the day. Lots of articles on that. But I remember it was the back in the day when Microsoft used to have the SharePoint conference, like SharePoint Conference North America, SPCNA. It was always at Vegas. It was always at the Venetian Hotel. There was a few of us. There was myself. I think there was also Shane, Laura Rogers, and one team came and told us, because they had just announced about the InfoPath going away. And a team came and talked to us. Hey, we hear you guys are on the InfoPath and SharePoint designer sites. We are from Microsoft, and we are internally working on something. They called that as Project Sienna, and Project Sienna was the internal project name of Power Platform, like Power Apps and Power Automate. So I've actually worked with Power Apps and Power Automate now for 10 years, even when it was still in private preview. It was called Project Sienna. I had like private preview access to it, and man, there was a lot of bugs. But from the get-go, I saw this one big potential that you can build shell apps and shell flows and connect and disconnect it to data, because that's something we could not do in InfoPath Designer and SharePoint Designer. Like you select a data source, you are stuck with it. And they from the beginning they designed it really well. And so that was on that side. And then what caught my attention, like when Power Virtual Agents came out, the first iteration of Power Virtual Agents was actually Q&A maker. It was quick Q&A, simple asking questions, getting answers. We're making chatbot systems. Then Q&A upgraded to LUIS, LUIS, language intelligence understanding system, LIUS, I think. And then that got graduated over to Power Virtual Agents. But there was still not a lot of love for Power Virtual Agents at that time. But I was just a big fan of it. I said that, I classify myself as an IT professional, not as a hardcore developer. And even I can build chatbots. So I was very fascinated with it. And that's when also I, started working very closely with the Microsoft, the product groups on chatbot systems and everything. And then at just one time, they replaced that into the Copilot Studio. And now Copilot Studio is just, webbed into so many things. And then the Copilot came in, and, that's really caught people's attention. But I kind of laugh at something, because people come and say, hey, did you see this new feature of Copilot Studio? You can go ahead and build these type of agents and topics and everything else. That's been there for Power Virtual Agents for almost 3 years now. So it's not that new, but there's like new things and nuances coming out, and some of the redesigning that's happening. So I'm glad I stuck with the PVA agent side, because it has paid off. But all in all, this is now my 7th year as a Microsoft MVP. 2 Microsoft people actually nominated for me. I had never heard of this program, but I had big passion of running user groups. I used to run the local Charlotte area SharePoint user group. I used to speak at the local ones. There was one in Virginia. There was one in Atlanta, Dallas. Like I used to usually hit Central and East Coast up there. And somebody nominated me. 2 Microsoft people nominated me, and I submitted in. And after that, I just became an MVP. And the rest is history.
Very impressive. That's amazing. That's amazing. With that being said, we'll let you speak about your topic then.
Yeah, let's see. So I am doing presenting. Not sure why it's showing up that way. Let me try sharing it. Stop sharing and present. Share screen. Redo a window. Let's go with, nope, that one. Much better.
There we go.
Okay. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm a Microsoft MVP and also a certified trainer. And these are all my handles on different social media platforms that I'm active on. I have also a very active YouTube channel. We post 1 video a week, all things Power Platform. And then I kind of stay towards on the low-code side as well. So I do, talk a lot about on the Microsoft Forms side, Viva Pulse side. Like, I look at the entire holistic approach of creating automation and forms and things like that. So that's just a couple of things that I manage. Yeah, let's actually jump into it. The agenda for today, I just want it's all things Copilot Studio, but I want to kind of touch as much of it as possible. So we're going to talk about what is Copilot Studio, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then I want to quickly jump over to the generative AI. It's very important that you understand this piece, because the generative AI is the heartbeat of Copilot Studio and all the agents. So we'll spend some time on that. Then I also want to talk about the type of scenarios of the conversations we can have, and then also options to simplify the agent creation. Because there's even just inside the Copilot Studio and on the agent side, there's a lot of options. And I want to kind of help you understand when to do what. And then we'll also end with some announcements that was made in Ignite, which actually I have copies of. I have access to those features now, so I'm able to show some demo to you. So let's dive in. Copilot Studio is your agent all the way. Basically, anytime you want to go ahead and make an extension of your own content to have a discussion type of thing, a conversation, you want to do that in Copilot Studio, and we'll talk a little bit more on that. But just think of Copilot Studio as anytime you want to make a custom agent with very specific conversation styles, very specific outcomes of it. That's where you use the Copilot Studio side to build your agent. And it is a full end-to-end conversational from the AI perspective. So there is the option now of using large language models or use your own data. So there's a really great diagram, an overview of what Microsoft itself has a very large language model, and Copilot Studio leverages that language model using the generative AI piece. But then you can bring in your own data for that. And that's the beauty of the Copilot Studio. It's definitely on the low code side. We are not touching into the Azure AI side of it. We're not dabbling in that piece yet. The Copilot Studio is definitely on the low code side, but it gives you the flexibility to expand on that. So these are some of the building processes, because you can go ahead and do some rapid authoring. You can go ahead and scale up or scale down however you want. And then as and when there is a tipping point where you're done with the chat and you want to switch over to having talking with people as well, you can add the human interface to these agents as well. The chatbot can hand over the conversation to a human person, and that's more on the Dynamics 365 side. So that's where it's on the other extreme piece. But these are basically the entire business processes. All of this can be done from a Copilot Studio side. I like just on that scale up, because there's scenarios where a lot of people can have chatbots. A lot of people have interactions with the chatbots, and the chatbot systems just work. In fact, there's enhancements also done on the licensing plan, so that you can have more and more of these conversations. And that's why it's this the scale up and scale down functionality from there as well. I did want to call this out because in Copilot Studio, we used to build chatbots that transition over into Copilot. Now, Copilot also has changed. So Copilot is still there. Like you and I have heard of Copilot like day in and day out. But now in Copilot, which is specifically Copilot Studio, we don't build chatbots anymore. We build agents. So this name has changed over the period of time, and it's very important in that. So just to reiterate, the Copilot Studio still there as is. Copilot is as is as well. But now we don't build chatbots; we build agents. So just thought I'll bring that up. And here are the two basic ways. So your Copilot, which is the out of the box, is that every employee is at a user level. Every employee will have a Copilot. There's Charles Lamarna, who's like the CVP on the Power Platform side. He's one made a very gutsy statement. He said that there will be as many Copilots, as a custom Copilot agents as there will be SharePoint sites. I thought that was a really gutsy comment, but if you think about it, that can happen because each of us already have our own Copilots. But if you ever want to build anything else, we can build agents, extend that over there. So that's the transition to the right side. Like the agents is for every business process, but the Copilot is for every user. That's why on the left side, you see that there's the personal AI assistance, which is on the Copilot side, but AI pilot system knowledge and triggers and actions and on behalf of employees and teams, well, that's agents. And then how in Copilot, it is the UI for AI, but on the agent side, it is connected to a Copilot, whether humans can interact with it or you can make it as an autonomous system. So this is basically that extreme that I talk about, is that your Copilot specifically with the agent builder, and I'll show you demos of that, that is absolutely no code. Like you do not need to know any coding whatsoever. You can, to build that agent with a few clicks, tap into whatever existing knowledge you have, and you can start building your agent that way. Then right in between is the Copilot Studio. That's where you come into low code side. Now, this is like the home place of IT professionals, citizen developers. Like you spend a lot of time on the Copilot Studio building your custom agents to really tweak it down to the exact need. Now, if you're on the developer side, then that's when you start going into the Copilot Studio plus leveraging Visual Studio side, and you can also use the Azure AI Builder, and then post that on GitHub and just do all kinds of magic. So that's like on the advanced side. So this is still all about the building your custom agents, but these are the three different types of options that you have over here. The spectrum of agents, again, same type of things is, on one section, it is very retrieval. So anytime you are having your custom agent, your no code agent that you've built, the agent is basically built out of the box. You tell it the knowledge, which is the data source that you want to have. And then this agent will, simple agent will go and do all the retrieval work. That's the simple part. Middle section, again, which is very task oriented, that's the Copilot Studio, the low code IT professional places. That's where they can go and say, okay, my interaction with my agent is going to be very specific. So I'm going to create very important tasks, which we call as topics also, that based on the conversation, I'm going to trigger a few topics and tasks to get the conversation going the way I want it. And then now the other extreme also is completely autonomous. And I'll show you some examples of that where you can go ahead and have this type of agent running in the back end using generative AI, which is having automatically triggered based on some action. And it doesn't need a human interaction for the trigger. So these are, the three different extremes on that side. So all in all, when it comes to the Copilot plus the Copilot agents built in Copilot Studio, it's no longer just IT person building it, because it is a collaboration of your entire department. So, if you've got citizen developers in each and every one of these people, well, they can go ahead and start building either their own agent, which is the no-code agent, or they can go ahead and start building their own agent using Copilot Studio. And sometimes it takes a village to create it, because your developers, citizen developers may have the skill set, but the knowledge piece, that will come from all of these different departments. Plus, they are good users to also go ahead and do the testing and pieces like that. So it really is this entire collaboration piece. Speaking of collaboration across a big footprint, this is another interesting thing that I like to show. So there's two items which I'm showing over here. First of all, the explosive growth on the number of languages. When I used to first work with this with Power Virtual Agents, I had all of 5 languages to work with. And now you've got 23 different languages and still growing. So it's always growing. Other thing is the data centers for, where you can actually connect for the different type of tenants that you may have. So there is, anywhere from North America, South America, Europe, Asia, all the way down to, the entire Asia, all the way down to Australia. And it's not just for the, the regular commercial type of clouds, but it is also there for GCC and GCC High. So it really has, pick up and gone GA at full length. And here's a really good, kind of diagram itself over here. So take a look at, first of all, let the screen, let it settle down a little bit. But what I want to talk about is the availability for both Copilot Studio standalone and the Copilot Studio for M365. So if it is Copilot Studio standalone, then all this text that you see, that's the one which is blue in color. But everything that is in black, it is a combination of Copilot Studio and Microsoft 365. So what I want you to take away from this slide is that even the Copilot Studio standalone, the Copilot Studio with M365, quite a lot of options over here. You can do some designing, you can actually do some collaboration. There is some language model associated with that. You do get some analytics, but if you really want to go in a full extreme and go and use all these bells and whistles, that's when you want to go directly in the Copilot Studio side as well. I really like this slide functionality. So now let's start getting familiar with some terminologies. Generative AI or artificial intelligence. And this is basically the statement is that produce a human-like content in the form of text, images, and code in response to end user prompts. So prompting is basically you asking the agent very specifically what it is that you look for. And prompt is something that you will improve over the period of time. But this is what the concept of generative AI is. So some of these terminologies, if you haven't already seen or gotten yourself familiar with it, I highly recommend that you do. You will hear these things again and again and again. So I'm pretty sure you and I already know what Copilot is. I just told you what generative AI is, and you probably already know GPT. You heard that again and again. Plugins. In our lifetime, we've heard of plugins, add-ons, connectors. We've heard of. But the two other things I want you to understand is LLM and RAG. LLM stands for large language models, and then RAG stands for retrieval augmented generation. And that is a process. So you basically see, when we talk about Copilot Studio, it uses the RAG model to go ahead and get Microsoft to leverage Microsoft's LLM for your knowledge. So you kind of understand, see how these terminologies are all intermingled. And you will hear this a lot when you start having these discussions also. And when you start attending some Microsoft sessions, you will hear them say things like that. So it's very important that you understand these things, not just the Copilot and the generative AI, but I want you to kind of understand what LLM stands for. What is this RAG model or RAG process that they talk about? Retrieval augmented generation. Okay, so now let's talk about the types of scenarios where we actually use Copilot Studio to build our custom agents. And then these are some of them. So first, the most important one is business to consumer. All right. So examples for that is a customer support. Me as a single consumer, I'm going to go ahead and find information about, hey, how do I go ahead and return this product that I just purchased? Or how do I go ahead and if I'm about to purchase an asset like a laptop, I can go ahead and ask my Copilot, this agent, that what is the largest laptop? Like it's a 15-inch, or I can just have a 17-inch, things like that. Another example is getting an appointment, for either of the manager or stuff like that. Like this is where you are talking to a business, but I am a single consumer that is talking to it. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is business to business. So for example, in a project management type of a scenario, even though I'm as one person going in, I may be on one side of the business asking the next business model, hey, what is the current status of deliverables in the project? And that can take a lot of the effect because first of all, I may have to be part of the project, so I need to provide some information. So my business side is providing very specific things such as project names and so on and so forth. And when I go talk to the next business first of all has to first verify, am I the right person? Then go ahead and based on my authentication authorization, get me the correct information. So like business to business is just one of them. Example also supplier interaction. Like now you're talking to, as one consumer, which could be the purchaser or the department which is expecting the delivery, or the company that is expecting the delivery, talking to the company that is actually doing the delivery itself about these type of things, And so this is a business to business type of example. The beauty of the business to employee is that you can now have the extension of building it inside Microsoft 365 Copilot. And I'll show you some examples of that is, how to quickly find responses to popular employee informations. That's a great place, all the way up to going and having expense management using, interaction with ERP systems such as SAP or SAP. So some more examples of business to employee IT services. And these are extensions, like not just inside SharePoint, but these are extensions where you are now for your IT services using a combination of ServiceNow with approvals, Azure DevOps, and so on and so forth. The human resources side, you're using Workday with an ERP system, plus some content from SharePoint. Like, these are the type of business to employee scenarios as well. So what I want to do now is actually do some demos, at least from the business to consumer, and then I'll also show you some demos on the business to the employee side. So I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to start first with something very simple. All right, so here we go. On our Microsoft 365 side, and I'm going to change it because it's when you come to your where are we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You have
wrong.
to share again.
Share again. Yeah. Okay. That's fine because that was. Yeah, it wasn't working out very well. Anyway, share. There we go.
There we go.
So that is me. Okay. So here, anytime you come now to your Microsoft365.com, you can find your Copilot over here, right? Now, the requirement for this, the one big requirement for this is you need to have that Microsoft 365 Copilot license. If you don't see this, which means either one of the two things, your infrastructure team, IT team hasn't enabled it, or they just haven't purchased those licenses. So that's like one requirement, is you really need to have that Copilot. So this is where that absolute no code option of building Copilot custom agent comes in. Because now what I can do is I can literally come over here and I can go and say, hey, here are some of the agents that you have. And you can start to leverage it. So I've actually got some agents. So right on this one, there's a Microsoft products agents. So if I actually go in and click on create an agent, click on the drop down, and I look at this Microsoft products agent, this is what it is. See this, if you've come from the Power Virtual Agent side, or if on the custom Copilot Studio side, like first things first is you go ahead and give it a Copilot, your agent a name, give it a description, give it some instructions, like what is this agent all about. But here is where you start absolutely on the no code side. That's all you're doing. You're just having a conversation, you're filling stuff up, you're telling it that here's my name, my description, giving it some good instructions, and then you are telling it where the knowledge is. So the knowledge piece for the Microsoft 365 Copilot, big one is SharePoint. Like, if somebody might even argue that's the only one. So what happens is for adding it, you can go ahead and add directly your URL. And for your URL, I'll just take an example. Like I'm going to go grab this projects one. You just come over here, you click on the Control C. You don't even need that HTTPS://. No, just basically go ahead and just paste it over here, and it'll take it. In fact, you don't even need the default.espx. That's one way. Other one is you can just click on Browse, and just like you would go ahead and go to your SharePoint site, it shows you all the sites that you have access to, and then you can go ahead and work on it. But here's where the magic happens. Okay, at least I've noticed it. So let me go, for example, to let me go to projects. Okay, in my projects right over here on the top, now I can go down to not just the documents, but even the sub document library level, like all of this level. Now, you might not even react to this, but I have to tell you the importance of this. When I was building, even in Copilot Studio, all right, in Copilot Studio, earlier versions, and even in Power Virtual Agents days, it was kind of all or none. Like it was a full SharePoint site. And if you wanted to go down to a folder level, you had to know how to use REST APIs. And you had to know how to go ahead and tap into a REST API at that document folder level. That was a big deal. And people needed that sometimes. And you had to work around doing stuff like this. But now it's all click-based. Excuse me. It's all end user click based. Like I'm not a single line of code which is done. So I really want to emphasize this to you, that it is literally that easy now. So I have done two things. I've gone ahead and actually added a products guide. So if I click on it, it'll actually shake it. This is all these. My products guide library is a place where I keep all these documentations about licensing, FAQs, knowledge, and all of that. So helps me to have this place, and so that I can directly just come and ask the agent some information. These are the starter prompts. So any questions that you think users may ask a lot, instead of they coming and typing it in, you just give them those starter prompts, and you have the option to add up to 8. Now it doesn't mean that you have to, up to 6. Doesn't mean that you have to add all 6 of them, but you can at least add max of 6, and I can remove it, tweak it, change it, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do now is actually show you an example of it. So here, right over here, okay, in the Microsoft 365 product agents, I clicked on it. You remember we tapped into that SharePoint page, the site on this. So here, I'm going to actually go and say, tell me the latest about D365 license. Okay. Now I'll intentionally put D365 because sometimes in conversations we say that, but D stands for Dynamics 365. Now there was a document of this in that library. So it is combing through the documents, and there you go. It actually picked up, like this document is specifically coming, this information or this knowledge is coming in from that PDF file directly in our SharePoint site, and it gives me this overview. So it is also pretty smart. It knows, it has a really good guesstimate idea of how, the information that you're looking for, and it's able to go and do all this information. So like these are the examples of like when you want to build your custom agent, try this way first. Like, where's your data? Is it on SharePoint? Great. Does everybody have Microsoft 365 Copilot agents? Fantastic. Then in that case, start to leverage this. Because from here onwards, all you have to do is now share this with other people as well. And I'll show you how to do that. So you come back over here as we're creating an agent, go back and find our agent. And then here in the share, click on the share, and you either give them the full URL, or you have to give them the full URL, and you can send it to them via email, or you can go ahead and put it on the Teams chat. But they need that once. Once they go ahead and open it up and click on it, they will start to see all of them over here. Now you can share this in 3 different ways. When you're originally just building it, testing it, and all that, it's only you. Anyone in your organization or specific users. Now, specific users are individual users that you type in using the email addresses, or you can use Entra ID security groups. Not Microsoft 365 groups yet. It's currently Entra ID security groups. So you've got these 3 different options, and from there on, you can start going and coming here. I mean, using it. You always have the option to come over here and tweak it as much as you want, change the icons. But this is the one side of it, the absolute no code way of building it. All right, so that's the first option. What I want to kind of and this is the best one also for the business to the user, where I'm a single user searching for some information. Here is the website of my business department or my business group, and I'm going in and leveraging that. The second option from here is now we are going into the middle area, which is the citizen developer IT professionals type of things, which is basically using the Copilot Studio. Now, when you go into the Copilot Studio realm, things change a little bit. First of all, the licensing model changes. Over here, I don't need Microsoft 365 Copilot license, but I do need some other license. I need the Microsoft 365, Microsoft Copilot Studio agent license to build these agents. And I just need to make sure that all the users who are going to use it, they just need to have the user piece turned on. There's no cost associated with that piece. The agents is the one you pay for. But the users need to at least have that feature enabled for them. And then there's also a separate licensing plan if you're going to make it autonomous. Autonomous, where you put it on your public website and it starts to work that way. Now, one of the things about the public website is you got to be a little careful about, not careful, but you will have to be mindful about where the data is coming from. And to demonstrate that, I've got this example over here about my receipts. So, for example, the building of this agent, again, is very similar to the absolute no-code piece that I've shown you. You basically come on to Copilot Studio, you click on creating a new agent, and the agent piece will start coming up as, okay, what's the name, description, instructions, any existing knowledge that you want to have, things like that. But now this is, say if I'm going to take this agent and I'm going to put it up on your public website, well, because it's SharePoint and SharePoint is an internal thing, it needs to go through like an authentication piece. So let me actually show you what that actually requires. I'm going to go ahead and go to the demo website as if this is going to be in a public facing example, right? So the moment I go over there, our agent is loading right over here, the receipts piece. And the first thing it's asking for is to continue, please log in. Why? Because the data source is your internal SharePoint piece. And so depending on where the data is, you will have to do stuff like that. And this is something that I tell people up front is that now you've got the flexibility that if your data is on SharePoint, if all your users are internal, then go back to that Microsoft 365 Copilot and build your custom agent over there. So much more easier than doing this, because this is required. Like I have to I got to copy that, come back over here, go on the paste it, hit the enter. It will now authenticate. Okay, good. I have, now you are inside I have access to the inside of my tenant, and then you can go and ask all these questions. And from here on, then it's the exact same. You ask, I've put it in the receipt, so I can ask some questions about the receipts, or I can ask questions about some documents on the SharePoint. But from here on, the conversation is the exact same. But I wanted to show you that distinction, the distinction about in the Copilot Studio side, you have still the knowledge, But now, if you're going to put on a public-facing website, these additional things happen. But there's so much more you can do on the Copilot Studio side that you can't do on the agents. First of all, on the knowledge piece itself over here, you can go ahead and add quite a lot of knowledge. In the Copilot, in the agent, which was in Microsoft 365, we just had SharePoint. Well, over here now, I can go ahead and add public websites for real-time answers. If I click on it, now you can add quite a few of them. I think you can add up to 20 these links over here. Or you can now go ahead and connect to other data sources. You see the two big ones, SharePoint and Dataverse. You can also go and upload files. Any of the files that are uploaded over here are directly saved in Dataverse. And each of these files can be up to 512 meg per file. So, and it only supports text, things such as images, audios, videos, and executables or exe files are currently not supported. And like I already said, they're stored directly in Dataverse. One of the beauties of using this type, and I'll talk about that, is that when you go and put a document, it real time will go ahead and get ingested. And that is a big difference between our Microsoft 365 one. Because say you go ahead and upload a document to SharePoint like right now. Well, it needs to wait till that, the agent will not be able to give answers about that document until that document has been indexed on the Microsoft 365 side. And that does vary. Usually it's every 15 minutes. And sometimes, depending on how many more documents you may have, it may have skipped that in the first 15 some minutes. It may take some more time. So that is a little difficult to gauge. Sometimes I just told people, if you upload a document, just wait for like an hour and then go ahead and try that in the agent because it might take that much time. But not over here on the Copilot Studio side. The moment you upload it, it will immediately get indexed, and it'll actually tell you at that point too, is that the difference, hey, it's still, being processed, it's still being processed, and then it'll tell you it's ready. Big difference. Immediate, availability of the content right over here. You don't have to do any waiting or, figuring out that piece. But now there is the topics, and then there is the actions. But the topics is what you go ahead and make your agent very, very specific. And this is the clear, big distinction between the Microsoft 365 Copilot agent and your custom agents that you build over here. Even the Microsoft 365's custom agent doesn't have this level of detailed granularity because now I can control what the conversation should be. I can even go ahead and make sure that the answers that you get are very specific answers. And yes, I can use the generative AI to make it, more friendly, make it more interesting. But what is the answer? When should one specific answer be provided as against the other one? Like, you've got full control of that conversation. So that piece, that level of control, this is where you have it at the topics level. Actions is a new section that is coming all together, where I'm going to now go ahead and have AI to actually do the actions piece for that. So I'll click on it so you can actually see. These are actions, is basically the actions that you would pull in from the Power Automate Cloudflow side. Any specific action, like my example that you see over here is I'm actually going ahead and pulling in information from a third-party website called rebreakable.com to get some Lego part information. Well, that one is an action. Like, I actually have a connector called rebreakable.com. That rebreakable.com is an API connection. I send it some information, which is a Lego part number. It brings it back. Like, those are actions that I use. These are built inside directly into the Copilot Studio, so you can go in. You don't actually have to use Power Automate. You don't have to call the flow. It's similar actions you saw in Power Automate directly now built inside the Copilot Studio piece. So it's pretty neat from that standpoint. So here are the examples that I have. Now I want to see if I can actually show you one of my working ones. Let's go over to the dev one, because I have my favorite Lego one, the example that I'd shown you about the rebreakable one. It's loading. Come on. All right, right here. See that Lego Copilot? So I'm going to go and click on that one. Take a look at it. Okay, so in this case, for the knowledge piece, I've actually used some websites. We'll go and take a look. There's rebreakable.com. That's the website. And then also I've gone ahead and put in the Lego website right here. In addition, I'm also going ahead and using my actions. This action is called as rebreakable.com. So if I go and click on it, you will see this action. Like, what is the details? Well, it's using that action of getting Lego part information. Input is actually me taking user's response in that conversation. And then the output it comes is getting all of this. I want information about what the description is, the model, part number, all of this. All this is all the information that I can get pulled. So I'm going to go and grab all of that. So what I want to actually do is, let's see if I can go to the demo website. It's probably going to ask me to authenticate in over here as well. Right here, log in. Grab that, come back here, paste it as a one-time. All right, I'm a Lego Copilot, a virtual agent assistant. So I'm going to say about, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to put in the Lego part number 3031. Let's see what we get. All right. Some of you, if you're a Lego person, you should know what this is. So 3031 is a 4x4 plate. So you see, like, I intentionally did this to prove a point. Like, if you had, a need where people coming in and start just putting in part numbers for some devices, if you're working for some kind of pharmaceutical company and you've got just code information, like, just by putting in that information, you can actually go ahead and get all that. You don't even have to have a full-blown conversation. But now my Lego, the custom Copilot that I built was specifically go and get information from one of these places. Now, if I go and click on it, it will actually tell me, oh, you actually got your information from the rebreakable.com. And the rebreakable.com was actually the URL that we added as our knowledge. It's also the rebreakable.com's API piece that I've added. So that's basically what I was talking about, is your custom Copilot. When you're building it at this level and you want to connect to other data sources and you want to control the full conversation, this is the combination. This is one example, because I've got already my knowledge, I've got my actions, and I can take it one step forward by making sure that the topics of conversations goes in a whole separate direction. So, this is just the one extreme piece of all of this that is happening. What I want to end with on these demo sites is talking a little bit about the other features that have come out. So here are the ones. So the new features which was actually announced, and this was even announced at the Microsoft Power Platform community conference in Vegas, but it also announced at the Ignite time, was the autonomous bots. So autonomous triggers is where you go ahead and you add these triggers, but now based on some discussion, it will autonomously run. So I'll give you an example. Now, if you want to go ahead and specifically take a look at your flow for, and let me, it's best actually if I show you an example on that. Here, go back to, I think it's my production one. Go back. Let's see. Knowledge. Oh, that's not the one. Let me. Oh, it's actually in the dev. That's why. Let me go back to my dev. Take a look at my actions. Right here, the projects one. So here is an example of some of the autonomous ones that I've built. So when I come into my in the agent itself, you see triggers over here. Now, when I go and click on these triggers, what is going to trigger the autonomous agent to start? You can put it based on a timer based, which is recurrence at certain time, or any of these triggers that you have available right now. Like, these are the featured ones, but these are all of these triggers. So I want to pause over here and answer a question, which I know some of you may be thinking and saying that, Daniel, what is the difference between autonomous agent and a Power Automate Cloud Flow? Because they sound very similar. And here's the big distinction. Two things. First of all, large quantity of processing that you want to do, you do that on Copilot, on your Power Automate Cloud side. You don't want to use your autonomous agents for that. Secondly, is you got very specific actions that you want to use, like documents coming in, something has to happen, and then you want a full control of that of the actions. That again, you do it on the cloud flow side. You don't use the autonomous one. On the autonomous one, you basically do what two steps. One is you are telling it, hey, what should be the trigger? And then after that, let the generative AI go ahead and do its thing. So a best way to show you is this example. I came here and I literally clicked on it. When you do that, it takes you to this Power Automate flow. And that's what I wanted to show you, is that your autonomous agents use this Power Automate on the back end. And all it does is the trigger. Like, this is my trigger. I want you to start when there is an incoming email in my regular folder, inbox folder. Subject has something to do with receipts, and yes, it has an attachment. After that, go ahead and send this entire thing over to the generative AI to go ahead and process this information. And then you can take that information and get some answers, answers back. So I've got some activities over here because I actually already run examples, but I like to show you this activity because it's showing you this type of scenarios that, hey, your action did start because it did receive an email. Your email had an attachment, the subject had receipts, but now the AI is going to take that information, the attachment, you can even go and see the body, run that against some knowledge sources, and then it'll come back with some answers. Remember the examples that I showed you about how you can go and put in the knowledge and let the generative AI give you some answers. Like, this is the clear distinction. You are now also using the generative AI, but you're having your generative AI to do an orchestration of all the data that you're using in the backend. This is the power of the new autonomous one that is there. Clear distinction. It is not the same as the cloud flows, because over here is purely generative AI based, but you can go ahead and actually really build on top of that, because this flow now that is created, I can do other stuff with it. Like, I can go ahead and now do the processing, get the processing information, like, what was the overall outcome of this email? Okay, was some response that I got, now take that response, go ahead and send that email over to another person. Like, multiple steps can be done, and these are all autonomous, automatically triggered based on all of these information over here. So what I want to end on is some of these new features that are coming in. So here's the autonomous one, which actually is, I've already showed that to you. The dynamic agent piece is another one that we're still looking forward to, new features for looking forward. Right over here, I actually showed you an example of it. Is based on the the data that is coming in, or the autonomous that is run. It will dynamically go ahead and trigger what should be the next step, whether another email needs to be sent out or content needs to be saved somewhere. You can go ahead and build this type of activity, watch it, maybe wait while a human interaction needs to be put in. But these are the type of dynamic agent chain that can be put in. And this activity piece is it's going to be pretty neat. We saw a really good demo of that at the Power Platform conference, just to show you a full activity of what's going on. And then the last piece I want to show, this is the last piece that I want to show you, is that on the left side over here, these message packs, there is the ones that we're already familiar with, the conversations that you're having message wire, like these are the licensing plans. However, as of December 1st of this year, you also now have the pay-as-you-go model, and that really helps for both the sides. Like, whether you're not doing a whole lot of usage, pay-as-you-go works well. But if you've got excessive usage as well, then pay-as-you-go also works for that. So it actually works on both those sides. So I know we talked a whole lot over here. I'm going to actually stop and just kind of, see if there's any questions, but just kind of, give you a full summary today of the entire Copilot, both from the no-code standpoint with Microsoft 365 Copilot and its extensions, and also we talked about the your own custom Copilot using Copilot Studio, and all the bells and whistles that are there out of it. You can use your existing knowledges, really tweak it if you want to add your own topics to it to control the conversation. And then the next, the levels of it coming out is the autonomous one and the dynamic chaining. I'm going to pause over here and take a sip.
That was great. Thank you, Daniel. I don't see any questions, but this was very interactive, very good session. Yeah. And I guess let me answer this question,
Yeah.
which might be a little bit sticky, but where does licensing come into play? Because honestly, like you need a PhD to understand Microsoft licensing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, think about it as licensing is much easier if you are doing it from the Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you're using the 365 Copilot, and if you're just building agents over there, that's fine. Then only two things happen. One is the person who's making it needs the license, and the person who's using it also needs the license. Because let me see, is my screen? Yeah, my screen is still there. I'll show you this example. So here is me. All right, I have got my license. I have got my license, and therefore, when I go to my home site, I see the Copilot. When I go to any of my other sites, I can actually create an agent, and I can see the SharePoint agent. But if I now go in as another user, this is the one, user and my tenant, but this user does not have that Copilot license. When they come to their main Microsoft365.com, they don't see the Copilot functionality over here. And when they go to the SharePoint sites, they don't see the Copilot here as well. See on the top right. So they can't leverage those custom agents that you and I build. So it's simple from this standpoint. If you want to keep it simple, you can build your custom agents for your existing content, but leverage the Microsoft 365 Copilot. The catch is both the makers and the end users need to have that license. But the other extreme is the Copilot Studio piece, is where end users don't need to have that license. It's only the makers of the Copilot. They need to have that Copilot agent license. End users just need to have that feature turned on for them. It's a zero cost feature for the end users. You just need to say that, okay, Daniel needs to have the Copilot use license turned on, custom Copilot Studio use turned on. Agent users, what it is called, are turned on, but there's no cost for that. So there's no like, if 10 or 100 or 1,000 people are using that agent, 1,000 people need to have license. It's not that way. You just need to have the license for the agent piece. But again, that's a very customized, agent that you are building. And so you need to kind of make that decision. Is that the route that you want to go to based on your requirement? Or do you want to stick on the absolute no-code side and just stick to the Microsoft 365 agents? Because even that one just uses Copilot Studio in the back end. And there's actually one piece I totally forgot to show you. Let me show you that. It's out right now. Well, actually, it's not fully out right now. Let me go into my, still on the slide deck. So let me end that slide deck. Go back. You're still seeing it, right? Yeah. That's the wrong one. This one over here. All right. So if anytime you've gone ahead and built any of these, custom agents right over here, whichever, and I did that as a SharePoint example, but no, right here. Yeah, actually, these custom agents. Let's pretend like we're creating one. Go and take a look at these agents. Okay. See on the top right, you can download that zip file, and that gives you your full agent, and that's what you can use on your Copilot Studio site. Like, you can build a much more extended agent as well. So that feature is coming out. There's actually going to be another one which will, right over here, open in full version. That one's grayed out right now. They've put the button over there. They're telling you that's going to be there, where you can take your existing no-code agent, and once you click on that full open in full version, it'll actually directly open inside the Copilot Studio. And then now you will have all of these options available as well. So you can start on the no-code side, but you can expand over into the low-code side. But remember, that one click suddenly changed your license plan, though. So you got to be a little careful about that. A little careful. So something to think about. But there's flexibility. There's good options, and that was the whole purpose of the session. Is the concept of Copilot and custom agents has really increased over just in the last 1 year. You've got different options. So you've got the Microsoft 365 Copilot side, and then you can extend that over into the Copilot Studio agent and really customize it. But you need to know what that requirement is, and whether you are a business to a user or a business to business. What is the data sources? Like, get all that information to make your decision, because you've got quite a few options.
Perfect. Great Thank you so much for that, actually. So that was a great session. I know you have a hard stop. So with that being said, I don't see any questions. With that being said, Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the demo. This was phenomenal. For our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please do like and subscribe to our channel, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye.